Welcome back to the Artefactors Union. I'm your host and foreman, Douglas Scoundrels. And we are backed all the way up to 0.7 zoom because for today we are assembling the Wyrdscapes Edge of the Quarantine Zone Makeshift Defenses box. Turns out these boxes do not have instructions, so I'm going to go ahead and assemble this one, and maybe I can get my hands on other ones so I can have videos for those too. If you've got those on hand, you don't mind sending them to me, I would appreciate it so I can get these videos out, because I like being helpful. Box contains 6 things: 4 pieces of fence, a fountain with the gross vomiting head things on it, and this abandoned ruin thing. So let's look at the sprues. There is a lot here, and it's not all for the same model, and it's not separated out into sprues per piece or whatever. So we've got like a wall and a floor for the house, but this flag I know goes on one of the fences. These little things right here are the water coming out of the heads on the fountain. It's a bunch of stuff, so I'm just going to need to show you each sprue and where things go, more house stuff, and now we're getting some actual fences, plus the bases for the fences, and little pieces of bird that goes on one of the fences. And then I think here's where the most of the fountain stuff goes. So, order of assembly, I guess we just do it in the order that's on the box. So we're going to start with the fountain. Give me one sec. Okay, so the fountain is split up onto 2/3 sprues. This sprue is the one that has no pieces on it for the fountain, so we can at least set this one aside, the one with the actual fences on it. So let me find a part of my desk that's open. None of it's open. We're just going to throw it on top of my dried prunes. Okay, so assembly. This is the watery part of our fountain. You can see here. That's where we'll build up the center of the base. I think our last step will be adding it to the walls of the fountain because they're probably not going to be all that much in the way, but they could be in the way ever so slightly. Just so for convenience, we'll do these 2 pieces less. So we'll clip this one out, and then we're going to build our sort of pedestal in the middle, which is these 3 pieces. After that, we'll add the 4 heads. There's 1 head, 2 head, 3 head. Where's the 4th one? It's around here somewhere. There's a 4th head, I'm sure of it. Once we add those on, we'll go ahead and add the different bits of water that are coming out of each of the heads. Oh, there it is. After that, we will add the pieces of the dragon together and put the dragon on the top of the pedestal, and then we'll be done with all of it except for these 2 pieces. So I'm going to clip this one out and these 3 first. Okay, slight change after clipping things down. Here's our base. Now, these pieces, for some reason, I thought this went, inside of them. It sits on top, so we can go ahead and cut these out and assemble the whole thing first. But also, just to continue on with what we're doing, there's only one way these go together. And there's only one way they actually sit in on the top of the base, but it's maybe not that obvious, so we'll go over it later. But yeah, the nice thing is that there's a triangle piece on either end, and only one fits in here in one particular way. Don't know if it's this one. Nope, it is this one. And therefore, the topper, which also has that sort of triangle connection on the inside, only goes onto here one way. So, just trust me. But anyways, let's do our technically first step. Let's combine these 2 pieces and then plop this in on top, okay? Something I'll probably be saying throughout these videos, and I don't really need it right now, but because these are thicker pieces, you're going to want to do a lot more dry fitting and trimming down, shaving of bits to make sure that the gaps aren't too prominent, because if you stack a prominent gap on top of a prominent gap and top of a prominent gap, eventually the connections are not going to work very well, and it's going to look ugly. So I think these go together fairly well if you glued them. So let's do that. There we go, it's actually glued now. You see this tooth over here, that is just how we will guarantee that it slots in correctly for the topper. So that tooth right here will match this notch in here. So glue those next. That's a nice and solid puck. No prominent seams. We're good. So next we'll go ahead and combine the 2 halves of the base. Whoops, there we go. And remember, the two triangles are on opposite sides. Now, this is going to be our top, just because the connection points for the heads are sitting up higher. That way we know which is the top. So let's add our topper, I guess. Okay. And there's only one way that's going to fit. So as long as it sits on top, you know you've got the orientation. Good. So we're going to go ahead and add our faces now. Let's go ahead and cut those 4 faces out. Again, there is one on this sprue with the walls of the ruin. This guy right here. And then the rest are on the sprue with mostly fountain stuff. So 2, 3, and 4. Okay, our first head we're going to add is the one that goes on here, which is the guy with the big ears. Besides that oval, you may have seen some other connection points right behind these ears. The ears will glue to those as well, but let's check our seam. It looks good. I know this one we're actually going to have to do some trimming, so keep dry fitting. Very, very important. Okay, our next one is going to be... Oh, ow. Sorry, this guy with the singular horn. And the big nose, I guess. Okay, this guy wiggles a bit too much for my liking, so while it's still a little wet, we're going to do a quick trim out of his water stream, which is going to be this one, and sadly it's coming out of his nose. So what we're going to do is we're going to plug this into the top of the base, and then align the pillar, and making sure that these align up with each nostril, and this sits comfortably into the connection point. So our connection point for the water is going to be this smaller bar right here. I think I can just shove that in. Okay, that looks good as far as dry fitting that, but then we can put our guy on there, and yeah, that'll work. Head's aligned. I went ahead and glued those into our base because we know that it fits correctly. I would like to also dry fit our next one, which is this wider one here, before we attach the head, because it looks like the head will also be wobbly for that one. And, well, let me find it. Alright, here are our water streams. I'm going to go ahead and glue inside these sockets for the nose and the eyes, and make sure that they're actually connected to the pedestal, and then we'll go ahead and do the ears, right? Okay, found it on our sprue with the stairs. It's going to be this guy up here. Camera, please focus. Let's pop him out. Okay, there it is inserted. It didn't require any like forcing, and it's nice and flush. I went ahead and glued this one too. So now we can go ahead and add our head to our pedestal, which is going to be the one with the 2 vertical horns on it. There it is, attached. Seam looks fine. Now I'm just going to go ahead and dry fit and see if it'll get in there. Might need to pull these back ever so slightly. They're coming out of his eyeballs. Oops, it's not in yet. There we go. That's pretty good. And nose guy is pretty good as well. Okay, our last head. So I thought I was going to need to trim this one down because there's like a pretty good gap right there. It turns out I was just inserting it incorrectly. You don't want to go like this and try to pop it in up top. You see that gap there. But if you go from the top and make sure it slides in flush into that gap up here, the sort of curve, then it'll settle in nice and flush. So go ahead and glue that. Okay, and as you can see, the water coming out of it is already attached to the head, so we don't need to clip any more pieces out. Alright, the reason we didn't do this, guys, is so that we at least have one side where we don't have to worry about aligning the water streams up, and we can do later. I picked this one because it's got the 2 separate streams as opposed to one, so those should be slightly easier to finagle into their connection points here and the socket on the ears. Gross. Alright, let's attach them to the base, and then we will get our water sorted. Okay, here's the water for the ears. This top one, I believe, is going to be the guy's left ear on our right. And this bottom one is going to be the guy's right ear on our left. If you can see here, the connection points are different sizes, and this one looks like the smaller one, so that's how I figured it out. It'll be very obvious if I get it wrong, because dry fitting is not going to work. Alright, I was correct. Let's do our left ear first. Our right ear on our left side. Alright. Gross. Let's do our left ear on our right side. And that is our other ear. The pedestal is done. Now let's get to work on the dragon. Alright, to start, what we're going to add to the top of the pedestal is going to be this piece. Then we're actually going to grab this tail piece, which is going to kind of wrap around the side of the pedestal. After we're done with that, we'll grab the two halves of the dragon head, combine them together, and then glue them to the top of this piece, followed by the two pieces of the head, and then the water barf effect coming out of the mouth. Okay, so let's start with this one. Alright, our body piece is going to go right there. Okay, there it is attached. Now for our tail piece, you can see how it sort of flows this way. In fact, I can probably put it in there. Okay, yeah, it's going to fit in like that. Okay. Alright, that's good. Next up is the two halves of our dragon body. Let's put them together. Alright. Our seam looks good. Now this whole end is going to fit on top of here. And the head, which will be on this end, is barfing into this particular splash. Yeah, let's put the head and the water on the head onto the body before we attach the body to the pedestal. So, two halves of the head. Here is our completed head. Whoops. And you can probably see where the water is supposed to be coming out of. So let's add that next. It's upside down. There we go. Okay, there's the water effect coming out of the mouth. Now let's jam the head onto the body. Okay. We're all good. Now we can jam this on the pedestal. Okay. The connection point here is kind of wobbly. Just make sure you let it cure, because any sort of wiggling will knock it out of place, as you can see there. So I'm going to let this cure, and then we're going to work on the little peg things that go here, and we'll be done. So here are our pegs on this sprue. And the nice thing about on the fountain here is that each connection point is unique. So we have like an oblong one, a semicircle, a rectangle, and a square. And if I can look at them real quickly, I think we've got oblong one, semicircle, rectangle, square. Oblong, semicircle, rectangle, and square. We are all done with the fountain. Alright, fountain is all done. Camera's having a hard time focusing on it. So, as far as difficulty, I think knowing where the faces go and that the interactions with them and the water streams and the bottom of the fountain is all just a little on the complicated side. Nothing too terribly hard, but also knowing that you need to wrap that tail around the base of the fountain too. That's slightly difficult, but not too bad, I don't think. And it looks pretty. So let's move on to the ruin. Alright, for the ruined building, we're going to have to deal with all three sprues, but thankfully there's only 4 pieces on this one, and then we're done with it. But I would like to start with the second floor. So this piece will combine with this piece up here, and then these 3 supports will go on the bottom of it, which connect to the other side of this one. You can kind of see there's 1, there's 2, there's 3. Once all those are connected, I'm going to quickly dry fit it to this wall. I've got to flip this around again. You can barely make out the floor and the 4 supports. And that's just to make sure it'll sit flush, because I've assembled this but one time before and I had an issue with that. So I just want to make sure that it'll dry fit fine. After that, we can assemble the 2 halves of the stairs, which is on our remaining sprue here. And then we'll go ahead and once we have the floor and the stairs, go ahead and clip out the wall and the other wall. Keep shuffling these things around. This guy down here, and we'll add all the bits and pieces to it. There's torches and these ring things, as well as these will go on, these two pieces right here will go on the outside. So by the end of it, we'll have a floor, set of stairs, and 2 complete walls. And then I think we'll go ahead and glue the stairs, followed by the floor, and then add the other wall onto this one. These might change, of course, so let's start with the floor. So clip out this piece as well as this one. Okay, here is the top of the floor and the bottom. Let's combine the two. Okay, the wall and floor connection point is to my liking, although I still might just use super glue to connect it as opposed to plastic glue. So next up is our stairs. Let's just cut out both pieces. Alright, here's the floor. It's slightly warped, but if I just put pressure on it, the second I glued it and held it down for a bit, there's no real significant gaps. So I'm fine. Alright, now let's add the 3 supports on the bottom. So we have sort of a T-shaped one for this connection point, semicircle, and some kind of polygon. So we can see here on the sprue, the T-shaped one, the semicircle, and the polygon. So let's add those in order. Alright, the T-shaped one seems like good. Next, the semicircle. So, nice fit. Okay, our last piece, the polygon connection point. I realize polygon's probably not the most specific word I could use there, but you forgive me, because I'm just that cool. Alright, the floor is done. Let's quickly dry fit it against our wall. Okay, so I remember correctly that this is a bit wonky from last time I assembled it, so a couple things of note. There's going to be a big gap unless you do some shaving. Specifically, this outline of where it connects needs to be shifted over a few millimeters. I can just show you. One sec. Okay, if this is aligned on this side, then there's just this slight gap here on this side. I don't know if it's just warping of the sprue or what, but if you don't want there to be a big gap right here, then you're going to need to cut into this corner right here. I've got a chisel point X-Acto knife for that, whatever works best for you. And then next, just to make sure that it's a better connection point, what I'm doing now is that it's not dry fitting because I'm actually using plastic cement, but I'm just cementing both sides, sticking them together, and then after a little bit I'm tearing it off, and you'll see these sort of puckered, textured spots where it's actually connecting to the wall, and anything that doesn't have that texture on it, it's not connecting. So you can see there's a lot here that it's not connecting to. So if I go through and I shave down those spots where it did actually connect, that should make it closer, bring it closer together so that more parts of it connect. Okay, these pieces just fit on top of each other to make a staircase. Alright, it goes together fine. Now, let's concentrate on decorating the outside of this wall that we've cut out. Everything we need is on these 2 mostly used up sprues. First thing we're going to do is this long piece right here is going to fit right along here. And that's the only thing from this sprue. Then we need 2 of these ring things. I believe they are all identical, so don't need to really worry too much about which is which. We will need this flag that will go on the end here, and then we will need 2 of the torches. I believe this one and this one, which will be this hole and this hole respectively. Hard to see, don't get a lot of detail on the camera unless I focus in more. So this hole and this hole correspond to this torch and this torch. Alright, let's start with this long beam of some kind. Okay, there's our beam. Gonna need some pressure to really get in there, but it's nice and solid now. Let's do our flag, which is next, which is this gentleman. Can you focus, camera? Thank you. Alright, there's our flag. Please note that it connects down here and up here. Make sure those are secure. Now let's do our two ring things. There's one and two. Yep, they're the exact same thing, so it doesn't matter which one you clip out. Now let's do our two torches. Now remember, the connection points are unique. So this one over here is going to be this guy with the sloped connection point. There he goes. And our other one. The torch looks like that. Okay, there's the last torch, and we are done with this wall. Let's move on to the next one. Okay, we're going to grab the wall out of the sprue, but we have the same sort of support beam that this wall had, which is sitting on one of our old sprues. Then we have the two ring things that go here and here, and our last torch. Alright, here's the wall. Now let's add the support. I had to really squeeze it to get it in there, but at least it's nice and tight. So let's do our two ring things. First one needed a bit of shaving to get to fit there flush, but wasn't too hard. Second one was a little bit easier to get in there. Now let's do the torch. And another tight fit. I ended up doing a bit of trimming, again, just to make it get in there easy, but it's done. Oh, one other point, there is some connection stuff in here that you need to trim out. But we're done on this wall, so let's put the whole thing together. Let's first do the staircase. I'm probably going to use plastic cement for the connection points here, and then along the sort of outline on the wall, I'll use super glue. Okay, that's in. So now let's do the second floor. I'm just going to super glue this entire thing. Alright, that's what it looks like. I had to do a bit of shaving. Oh, jeez, sorry. Right in here on both the stairs and the part of the second floor, just so that I could inch it over a few millimeters, because I feel like this needs to be pretty exact for the other wall to sit nicely. So let's go ahead and add the other wall. I'm going to attempt it first with plastic glue, and if that doesn't work, I'll supplement some super glue in there. Okay, I'm done with that. It took a lot of, nitpicky shaving along here, especially in the corner, to get that to seem kind of flush. The gap there is still a little wider than I want it to be, but I could spend a lot of time on that and not be happy with it, so I'm going to call it good for now. I think it might be some issue with the floor here warping or being slightly a different size than it should be, because it seems to be the cause of my issues with it and the staircase and this wall and all that other stuff. But it looks good. I'm happy. Let's move on. Okay, slightly big for my little spinny platform thing, but this way we can look at all sides of it. This is rough. The second floor, just kind of messing with just the walls and the staircase, was a bit of a pain, to be perfectly honest. But if I bust out the Dremel and use that to just shave down the spots that I need to, with the exception of like the one corner in there that I had to scalpel out, would have been a lot easier, and I would have spent a lot less time on it, but I was being lazy. So, also, you don't have a Dremel, so try not to use that unless I absolutely have to. But it's terrain. Not going to complain too much. Let's move on. Okay, let's end this with our easiest set of bit pieces, terrain things, the walls, the fences. You can sort of visualize the base, or just go off of what I point to here. Hi, Wednesday. So these two pieces are going to be our first one. They're the easiest because there's nothing else attached to them. And we'll do these two pieces, which include the flag, which will slot in here, this flag down here. Next, we'll go ahead and do both these two will have bird pieces to them. I'll say this piece, which goes with this base, and I think 1, 2, 3 pieces for the bird that's nailed to the wall. Yikes. And lastly, this piece, which has a bird perched on top of it, and I think it's these two pieces of the bird, and our last unused base up here. Okay, so let's grab these two first. And the base for our first fence, and there we go. Easy peasy. Let's move on to the next one. Here's the base for the fence with the flag in it. We add our fence. Okay, those are two together. Seam looks fine. Now let's add our flag. Flag is sitting nice and flush with the fence. All done with this one. For the one with the bird nailed to the wall, we'll add the fence to the base first. Then we'll do the tail, which should go on this connection point, followed by the legs and then the head. Okay, here's our base, and the fence goes on top. Alright, there we go. Leg at both sides. Alright, now let's work on the bird. Let's start with the tail. That connects right there. Okay, cool. Now the legs should just go on top of it in that hole. Okay, and then the head. I'm just poking that last hole up top. Okay, bird head on. We're done with this piece. Last one, here's our base and our fence. The two combined on this side too. Alright, I believe we are facing the front of the bird, so let's go ahead and do the bird's right side, which would be on our left. Okay, there's the bird. Let's do our left side now. Okay, all done. All done with everything. Alright, our 4 barriers / fences are done. The hardest part was assembling the one bird that's nailed to the wall. And that wasn't too hard. This was the easiest of the 3 different kinds of terrain, I guess. But not a lot of pieces either, so obviously the easier one. But I'm like, obviously cannot fit all of them onto the platform thing, so I guess we're going to call it good here. Let me know if you happen to have the other terrain with you, because I'm not going to be able to afford to buy it myself, and I would like to assemble it to help other people, so, messed me, I guess. But I have been your foreman, Douglas Scoundrels, helping you build a better Malifaux. Enjoy your terrain.